Ice Barbie Kristi Noem, Secretary of Homeland Security, testified before Congress, and man, she got her ass lit up by Republicans and Democrats over a variety of issues, including the killing of 2 Americans by ICE agents, and of course, that plane, that some call the love nest, that with a bedroom that they picked up. So we're gonna show you some of the grilling, which was actually pretty interesting. First up, I'm going to play Senator Richard Blumenthal. He, of course, of Connecticut, had a woman stand up who survived being shot 5 times by Border Patrol agents. Folks, this was riveting. Watch this.
Miramar Martinez is with us today as well. She's standing right behind you. She was on her way to donate clothing at her church when she came across an unmarked car. The agents sideswiped her car. 3 masked agents in camouflage stormed out, and one of them pulled out his gun and fired at her moving vehicle, hitting her 5 times. She almost bled to death. Wouldn't you agree that shooting Miramar Martinez on her way to donate clothing at her church, a United States citizen from Chicago, is wrong?
Sir, I don't know the situation or the case. I'll look into it to ensure that all the procedures are followed properly.
I'm glad you'll look into it. Miramar, by the way, was falsely charged with impeding law enforcement, but the case actually fell apart. The judge dismissed it as being trumped up. He dismissed it with prejudice. And in fact, the agent who shot her, I'm not going to name him, but you know who he is, was quoted on social media the day or so afterward. And he said, quote, "I fired 5 rounds and she had 7 holes." Put that in your book, boys.
Republican Senator John Kennedy of Louisiana challenged Noem. Remember she said that the 2 folks who were shot and killed in Minneapolis, they were domestic terrorists? And then she said that, on the record, she said that, well, I was just listening to Stephen Miller. She then lies to Congress. Listen to this.
The 2 killings in Minneapolis, and I think there's a lot of video on them, Madam Secretary. I think people can see the video and draw their own conclusions. Are you and your department conducting an investigation of those?
Sir, the investigation is being led by the FBI. HSI was involved. In fact, our HSI agents on the ground.
I'm sorry to cut you off, but I got so little time. I believe at the time you said these were acts of domestic terrorism. Is that right?
Sir, in answer to questions at the press conference that afternoon, it was that it appeared to be.
Yeah, but you said these appeared to be acts of domestic terrorism.
And as I've said previously in this hearing, is that
first, Madam Secretary, did you say
we're getting information from a chaotic scene on the ground and relaying information to the American people.
Okay. Now, again, those videos are public. People can draw their own conclusions. I think it'd be safe to say you got some pushback on that. Mm-hmm. Would that be fair?
Yes, sir.
And you got some criticism. I'm not saying the criticism was accurate or inaccurate. I think you did. What got my attention was that you blamed those statements on Mr. Stephen Miller at the White House. Did you not?
No, sir, I did not. And in fact, where you're seeing that is in a news article of anonymous sources. And anonymous sources say a lot of things, but I've never said that at all.
Well, here's what you said on the record. I'm going to read your words. Quote, "Everything I've done at the direction of the president and Stephen."
Sir, where did you see me say that at? You read that in
It
a
was
news
reported
article with no sources
You said it on
affiliated
the
to it.
record on January 27th of 2026. Did I
Sir,
read your words accurate?
I enjoy working with the president and with Stephen Miller, and that day we were working to get as much information to the American people as possible. That is what we'll continue to do, and as that happens, we'll go
Do you
forward.
think it was fair to blame Mr. Miller?
Sir, I did not do that. You're reading from a newspaper article with
Yes, ma'am.
anonymous sources.
Are you denying that you said that?
Sir, I'm not going to speak to that situation that is relayed on anonymous sources that no
This
one has
wasn't
heard me
anonymous.
say that.
It was you.
No. Who
I mean, you
reported
said
that
it.
to that newspaper?
They're quoting you on the record, saying it's Stephen's fault. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Klobuchar.
And throwing an uppercut, but that was blocked.
Oh my God, she was straight up lying. She was straight up lying, y'all. She just straight up lying. Senator Cory Booker lit that ass up as well. Watch.
It is an idea that the government has a very high standard should they take away liberty and freedom from an American citizen. How many U.S. citizens has DHS detained as of last October?
Senator, if you're talking about detained and arrested, is that those that have been violating and obstructing our law enforcement operations? Is that what you're referencing? Because it could be hundreds and hundreds. We have faced violent riots across the country,
you are
specifically
saying
in Portland and in
the only
Minneapolis.
people you've detained are committing crimes, but you and I both know
No, I
that's
haven't
not true.
said that. I didn't
so
say
then
that. I
how
asked
many
which ones you
people
were referencing.
have you detained?
I can't give you an accurate number because we've literally detained and arrested many for those obstruction of law enforcement operations, and
So
also
public
others
records,
that had probable
let me tell you
cause.
what my staff researched.
And then released
May
once
I
they're- yes.
continue? Public records are showing that over 170 incidents of your agency unlawfully taking away the liberties and freedoms of American citizens. This includes 20 children, 20 American kids that your agency detained. How long can your agency detain an American citizen?
We don't detain children and separate them from their parents. Those parents have chosen
You're telling me
to
under
keep their
oath
child
right now.
with
Hold on.
them.
I just want to be clear. You're telling me under oath right now that your agency has not detained American children.
Those parents have chosen to keep their children with them. We don't separate families like the Biden
hold on.
administration
Let me
did.
continue.
We keep them
Let me-
together, and parents
please
have the
let me
option
continue.
on if they want their child with them or not with them.
How long do detentions last when you detain an American citizen? How long do they last?
We don't detain American citizens, and if there's probable cause.
Let me give you, because you are not speaking truthfully under oath. Isaiah Pena Salcedo, a U.S. citizen living in California, was detained more than 70 hours, almost 3 days, even after he showed ICE agents his passport. My colleague, Senator Blumenthal, gave you example after example. He brought people here who had something else we Americans consider sacrosanct, our home, our property. Your masked agents jumping out of unmarked cars have broken into considerable property damage occurring into American citizens' homes. Case after case of this, and you sit here before me and claim the buck stops with you, but you don't even know the names of these individuals. I ran New Jersey's largest municipal police department. When my officers engaged in misconduct, you can be damn well sure I knew about it and I investigated it. And yet you have situations where your officers are violating the sanctity of people's homes, arresting and detaining them and holding their children. And you're acting as if you don't know about it and saying that under oath. Miramar Martinez, who is here right now, on her way to church, an American citizen going to church, not just to worship, but to donate clothing, Your officers shot her multiple times. The case was thrown out of court, and you represent here that you don't know about it. In New Jersey, are you aware of your officers' activities in places like schools? Are you aware of your officers' activities at our public schools?
Sir, we don't go into schools and do targeted law enforcement operations. We do targeted law enforcement operations like other agencies.
So you're
and law
telling me that
enforcement
ICE officers entered the grounds of a high school in Minneapolis? That's a fact. Elementary school children in New Jersey are terrified of your agents. When they came upon a school bus stop, they fled. Another school, a higher education, Columbia University, your agents reportedly lied to students, told them they were searching for a missing person to gain access to private spaces, to non-public areas of campus. Secretary Noem, these are kids. They're terrified in our communities. How do you think that affects them when children in my state go running, fleeing, and often you all pursue children, throwing them to the ground, getting on their backs, putting them in handcuffs? I want to talk to you about this incredible empire of for-profit companies that are profiting at rates we've never seen, and the way you're using money. Let's drill down on the warehouses that DHS has been buying over the last several months, totaling hundreds of millions of dollars. Are you familiar with the acquisition of a warehouse DHS recently bought in Roxbury Township, New Jersey?
Yes.
You are familiar with that?
Mm-hmm. I'm
Do you
familiar
know
that
how much you spent for it?
No, sir, I do not.
$129.3 million. Do you know how much it was assessed for in New Jersey?
Sir, we're purchasing centers across the country to build efficiency into our detention system.
Efficiency to me, as a person who's run tight budgets before and had taxpayer dollars, you paid $129.3 million for a facility in my state that was assessed at less than half of that, at $62 million. To work for a president that says he's a great deal maker, I can't believe he thinks that you're a great deal maker. But what's worse than that is that the Roxbury Township Council, comprised entirely of Republicans, voted unanimously early this year to oppose that facility. My office tried to facilitate a meeting between DHS and local officials so that ICE could hear their concerns, yet DHS did not even respond. That is unacceptable, that you all would enter a town. You wouldn't even follow environmental reviews or have conversations with local officials about the resources, from emergency resources to fire resources and more, that you're going to pull down. You didn't even have a conversation. Secretary Noem, do you comply with court orders?
Yes, we do comply with court orders.
Your agency complies with court orders.
Yes, we comply with federal court orders.
You were saying under oath that you do, and yet we know in January the chief judge, Republican appointed for the Federal District of Minnesota, found that ICE had violated nearly 100 court orders since January 1st alone. In my state of New Jersey, last month, the chief of staff to Deputy Attorney General admitted in my state that in the New Jersey District Court that the government had violated 52 separate court orders, all involving cases where immigrants successfully challenged the legality of their detention. So this again is a constitution that you swore an oath to, and one of the most important ideals is that no one is above the law. You are violating the separation of powers, violating court orders, and routinely violating the civil rights of Americans. This is a reckless and out-of-control agency that you are responsible for. You seem to have no situational awareness whatsoever of some of the most egregious examples of Americans being completely attacked, violated, undermined in accordance with our laws by their own government. And this is what is phenomenal to me, is immigration was your president's #1 issue, overwhelmingly popular with the American people. But now it's overwhelmingly unpopular. And it's not because you are deporting dangerous people that everybody here wants out of our country. No, it's because you're going into our schools. You're terrorizing our children. You're detaining children. You're arresting Americans. You're breaking into our homes. You're terrorizing our streets. You're violating our rights to peacefully protest again and again and again.
None of
and then
that
when
is
a
true.
court tells you
None
to
of
stop,
that is true.
and then when a court
You are
tells you
trying
to stop,
to impede
you
us
violate
from enforcing
judges'
the law
orders, not in
and
a
getting
partisan
dangerous
way,
criminals off of our streets
Republican-appointed and
so we don't have more
Democratic-appointed.
families like the ones that are
Don't
sitting
sit
behind
there
me.
and tell me that
Lost
you are
their children. They're
responsible
gone forever.
for the running of your agency when you're not even aware. Either you are utterly incompetent or you are violating laws with impunity. You should step down from your position. If you don't, you should be removed by this president. And if not, Congress should impeach you.
Yeah.
Now, you may say, well, that's what a Democrat will do. Well, North Carolina Senator Tom Tillis, Republican, ooh, he was on fire. And his was crazy. It's amazing what kind of guts you get when you choose not to seek re-election. Ever since he chose not to run for re-election, he's really been tearing into the Trump administration. It would be great if he has some Republicans who do choose to run for re-election, have that sort of courage and heart. Roll it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Secretary Noem, thank you for being here. I'm really glad that a lot of my Republican colleagues talked about the disaster that Biden and Mayorkas, your predecessor, created. It was absurd. You heard the things from Senator Brett, people that came over here who themselves were traumatized by the very people who then come to this country and traumatize American citizens. You heard Senator Schmidt saying the same thing. A lot of us are very frustrated with the disaster that President Biden left behind and a failed DHS. It's why I'm angry, and it's why I've been critical of you, Secretary Noem, because we're missing an opportunity. Ladies and gentlemen, one of the reasons President Trump won a year and a half ago is because people were sick and tired of a Democratic administration's open border policy and allowing millions of people to come to this country, 1.7 million called gotaways. We don't even know where they are, but we know when you pay a premium to a cartel to get them into this country, they're bad people. Now, why have I been critical of Secretary Noem? Because I don't think we're focusing on, we have limited resources. ICE can't be everywhere at once. There's very few people in Capitol Hill that support law enforcement more than me, including the sworn ICE officers. In fact, I've just been told, fortunately, in about a week and a half, we're going to get a plaque on the wall over the Capitol, thanking the Capitol police officers and all the agencies that responded on January 6th. All those thugs have actually been pardoned, and yet we haven't thanked the Capitol police officers for their work here. So when I say I'm unapologetically pro-law enforcement, you can count in every single sworn officer in Homeland Security. So why am I disappointed with Secretary Noem? Because we're not going after enough people who did this damage at the expense of running numbers that Stephen Miller wants out of the White House. We just want numbers. We want 1,000 a day, 6,000 a day, 9,000 a day, because numbers matter, right? No, they don't matter. Quality matters, not quantity, quality. And what we've seen is a disaster. Under your leadership, Ms. Noem, a disaster. What we've seen is innocent people getting detained that turn out are American citizens. I could talk about the culture that's been created here with Stephen Miller aiding and abetting. I heard first reports that he was the one that said it was a domestic terrorist situation where 2 people lost their lives in Minneapolis. I've heard that report. Maybe you can refute it. I don't know that we'll have time for you to respond because I'm giving you a performance evaluation here. I'm not looking for a response. And I'm saying, Ms. Noem, that time after time after time I've been disappointed. But before I get back to looking at the vicious people that did this damage to these families, I want to talk a minute about FEMA. You have a policy right now that anything over $100,000 has to go through your desk for approval. I asked my staff, because I'm a management consultant, I don't try to do cheap shots in here, but the facts do not lie. This is your administration for FEMA response. This is President Trump's first administration. Which one would you like to have? If you're a state that has a $60 billion disaster, your biggest disaster in South Dakota that I can tell that when you were an elected official was about $500 million. So 1/100th of this single storm where thousands of people are hurting in North Carolina and you're just barely catching up. This is what competent FEMA leadership looks like. This is what incompetent FEMA leadership looks like. And people are hurting in Western North Carolina from the most significant storm they've ever experienced. This is what we need more of. I'm convinced you can't do it. If you're requesting a review of $100,000 and up, then it begs the question, why? Why would you be involved in that? Why would that be a policy? And in a minute, I'll ask about some people that are involved, some special government employees. Why are they involved in it? Thank you.
Senator,
no.
That $100,000 only had to do.
And I will hold the clock until I finish.
Okay.
The bottom line is I've done the analysis, and you can say whatever you want to. I've worked with the Democrat governor. I've worked with the Republican governor. I've worked with fiscal research. We have people contacting my office now to get the information to better understand the failure of this department. You failed at FEMA, and in fact, if I get to it, actually, why don't I cover this right now? The Homeland Security Act of 2002 expressly prohibits the Secretary of Homeland Security from restricting or diverting FEMA resources from the agency's mission. Based on your disaster response, the chart that I just showed you, I have reason to believe that you're violating the law, either knowingly or unknowingly. So I'll be asking and getting a submission to the record, submitting a question for the record, what the total amount of FEMA reimbursements are currently being held by DHS, awaiting for final approval. Held by DHS, awaiting for final approval for an agency that you should not be obstructing the disbursement on. I'm going to give you time to answer to it under penalty of perjury so that we can get it right. Now, going back to Minneapolis. Why can't we just say we made a mistake? I will ask you one question, if you can just give me a quick response. Who does Tom Homan work for? You or the president?
The president.
Okay. Why is that? Because I believe the president recognized that you weren't getting it done in Minneapolis, and you're putting us further away from pointing to this. We're beginning to get the American people to think that deporting people is wrong. It's the exact opposite. The way you're going about deporting them is wrong. The fact that you can't admit to a mistake, which looks like under investigation, is going to prove that Miss Good and Mr. Petty probably should not have been shot in the face and in the back. Law enforcement needs to learn from that. You don't protect them by not looking after the facts. Not only should the FBI be investigating it, but every single law enforcement agency in that jurisdiction should be invited to it. So our law enforcement officers do not have this pall cast upon them. One of the reasons why ICE officers are having threats, and damn the people that threaten ICE officers, because so many of them are doing a good job, is because you've cast a pall on them by acting like we should investigate things differently. Officer-involved shootings have a formula that we should go through every time. And we're not going through that formula. As a matter of fact, in Ms. Good's case, I think that they were even saying that maybe there wasn't even a need to do it in the DOJ. I hope that that's changed. But I'm telling you, it was a civil rights review. I saw your frown. You can correct me if I'm wrong. But originally, Blanche said there wouldn't be an investigation. Folks, law enforcement, we've got to have their back. We've got to make it clear when they make a mistake, then they get corrected for it. But you don't walk away from it, and you've done it too many times. Now, Secretary, I read your book last week. And honestly, some of the parts of it impressed me, but some of it distresses me. And I'll give you a good example of one that does. The passage where you talk about killing a dog that was 14 months old. I train dogs, all right? And you are a farmer. You should know better. You should know that if you're going out to a hunting lodge and you're putting pheasants out and you're putting dogs out, you don't take a puppy out there. A 14-month-old dog is basically a teenager in dog years. You decided to kill that dog because you had not invested the appropriate time in training. And then you have the audacity to go into a book and say it's a leadership lesson about tough choices. It's in your book. We could play it if we had time. At that same lunch hour, you killed a goat. And you killed the goat because you said it was behaving badly. You are a farmer. You don't castrate a goat. They behave badly. You should have probably done that before. But my point is, those are bad decisions made in the heat of the moment, not unlike what happened up in Minneapolis. We're an exceptional nation. And one of the reasons we're exceptional is we expect exceptional leadership. And you've demonstrated anything but that in the time that I've seen you responding to the emergency in North Carolina and across the Southeast, and acknowledging when mistakes are made and speaking too soon for the expedient of social media or whatever it is. I'll leave you with this, Ms. Noem. I'm expecting answers to Charlotte's Web. I requested it a month ago. That was one of the investigations in Charlotte, 20 minutes from where I live. All I asked for, if it had to be anonymized, was information so that I could determine if your hit rate is right. I want to find more of those people, and I want to detain fewer of the others. And Mr. Chair, in my remaining time, I have a lot to go. But I want to submit this letter from the Office of Inspector General that cites 10 different instances under Ms. Noem's leadership where they've been misled and not allowed to pursue investigations that they think are critically important. Does anybody have any idea how bad it has to be for the OIG in this agency to come out and do this publicly? That is stonewalling. That's a failure of leadership, and that is why I've called for your resignation. And if I don't get an answer to these questions, I don't want an applause. Please don't do that for me. If I don't get an answer to these questions, if I don't get an answer that you've had a month to respond to, and the remaining ones, as of today, I'll be informing leadership that I'm putting a hold on any en bloc nominations until I get a response. And in 2 weeks, if I don't get a response, I'm going to deny quorum and markup in as many committees as I can until I get a response. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay. How about them apples, Mustafa?
You know what, Secretary Tillis and I, we may not agree on lots of policies, but we do agree on what leadership looks like. You know, all those years that I worked in the federal government, I had the opportunity to work with secretaries, administrators of departments and agencies, and the buck always stopped with them and the senior leadership. And unfortunately, with the current folks, one, because they have a lack of experience. Many of them are put into jobs that they should never have. But, you know, unfortunately, they are there. So they either have a lot to learn or they're going to continue to make all these mistakes. I think sometimes they forget, Roland, you know, what the role of government actually is. All you have to do is go back to the Declaration of Independence, because one of the things government's purpose is to protect individuals' freedoms to live and be free. And when we talk about the folks that have been arrested or detained who are U.S. citizens, you are in violation of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, something that everybody learns, whether you're in elementary school or sometimes middle school, and they're failing at that. The basic core principles of who America is supposed to be, these folks are failing at. And they're failing because the leadership doesn't truly believe that, because if they did, there would be a different set of actions. So yes, as Secretary Tillis said, as Secretary Booker said, and many other folks, no one wants to see criminals inside of our country. But you continue to violate the law against United States citizens, and that is unacceptable. And until that changes, you are going to continue to have people who are going to push back because they do not trust that you understand what the rule of law is and how to apply it fairly. So that's the dynamic that's going on. Secretary Tillis was exactly correct, because I've worked with folks all across North Carolina who continue to say, when are the resources are going to come? Why are we invisible? Like so many environmental justice communities have been for decades, but now others are also feeling the invisibility, the erasure. And they're seeing resources that should be coming to their communities to help them to rebuild, be redirected to these sets of actions that no one is in support of, or very few people are in support of now. So I'm glad he said, what needed to be said, and so many others have been saying it as well. And it will also translate during the midterms when people vote.
Mateo.
So I want to start by answering Senator Booker's question on whether Kristi Noem is inept or she's willingly breaking the law. The answer is yes, in my opinion. That aside, there aren't a lot of people in my life, in history, that make my blood boil and that I find despicable. Kristi Noem certainly makes the top 5, probably. This is the same person. This is what I don't understand. This is the same person who, as stated in the video you showed, shot her dog because she could not train him. This is the same person, by the way, this was not said. This is the same person that, as governor of her state, was banned basically from tribal land because she had so many quarrel going on with tribal leaders and accused them even of benefiting from drug cartels. So this is the level of maturity and humanity. The place where they accuse them of that with absolutely no foundation. This is the level of humanity this person has. And now we are surprised that she's calling people that are simply protesting domestic terrorists. We're surprised that she has taken DHS and turned a federal agency into a propaganda machine, into a machine that is focused solely, primarily, if not solely, on anti-free speech activities. She is forcing herself and federal authority, by the way, into areas that should clearly be local jurisdiction, local authority, because she wants to stop people from talking, from freely exercising their constitutional rights. And when they don't stop, when she introduces her agency and her force into those realities, and people are unwilling to stop talking, she shoots them dead. And now she's using money, taxpayers' money, your money, my money, and she's buying jetliners with a bedroom in it. With the money that should go, by the way, not just to FEMA, not just to airport security, it's money that should go to the estates of Renee Good and Alex Preddy and all the people that have been shot and wounded and killed by the machine that she created, made of people that do not care about constitutional rights. They're looking at one thing. They're looking at whether you are exercising your constitutional rights and pissing them off, and then they're looking at the color of your skin or your accent or where you're located, and by that feel that you need to obey their orders no matter how unlawful they are. And if you don't, then you get shot. This is not just a crime, it is a stain in the history of our country.
Joe.
Tom Tillis is free as a bird nowadays, isn't he? God bless him. But here's the good news. Unless Jesus comes in the next 2.5 years, which really could happen. I mean, I tell you, the stuff that's going on right now. Kristi Noem will not always be DHS Secretary, and she might mess it up sooner than we think. She might not make it to the end of the term. And whatever happens, whatever needs to happen, because basically what she's done is she's gotten Republicans mad. And I got to tell you, with the way that Trump has done things over the last X number of years, that has taken something, because more often than not, they overlook what it is that's going on. But they understand, Tom Tillis understands the incompetence, understands the stain on law enforcement. If you are pro-law enforcement, then you would be supporting the law enforcement that did their job on January 6th, and many people lost their lives for doing so. First Republican I've heard talk about that in a minute. One day, though, Kristi Noem will not be DHS Secretary. One day, Pam Bondi will not be the Attorney General. And who knows, maybe with some luck, it'll be one day sooner or later. And whatever ought to come from the things that they've done, them breaking the law, them ignoring court orders, them doing things that are not only morally wrong, but legally wrong. I believe and hope that justice will be done as it pertains to them. And if that means criminal prosecution, you are presumed innocent until proven guilty, etc., it is absolutely worth looking into and to follow it wherever it leads. If you have questions about what, quote, DEI is supposed to be on the negative, This is it, putting people that are unqualified to be in positions. But for this administration, qualification hasn't been important. That's why there's so much brain drain. That's why when it comes to actually getting things done, they have problems getting things done, because the people that are competent, that have integrity, that actually care about their professions and see themselves having professions, for instance, a whole lot of people in the U.S. Attorney's Office, those guys have bounced because they know better. Nothing's worth losing your license. Nothing's worth being branded as someone that doesn't have any integrity. So I'm glad that this is being said. I'm glad that Republicans seem to pile on a little bit here too. But the truth is like that. The truth is going to be nonpartisan. And so hopefully this continues and it is followed with due process to its logical end, even if including but not limited to potential criminal prosecution for those that are ignoring and flouting and breaking the law under the guise of doing justice.
Absolutely.